The Eight Immortals Travel East Chapter 16.
Imagine being like the apex predator of an entire empire.
Right.
You are the literal physical embodiment of military might.
Hey.
You're commanding tens of thousands of men, and your word is literally life and death.
Yeah, absolute authority.
Exactly. Your whole identity is built around this strict hierarchy, conquest, and just the absolute domination of the world around you. And then, in a single catastrophic afternoon on a blood-soaked battlefield, you just lose absolutely everything.
Everything overnight.
Yeah. You go from a conqueror to a target. You're fleeing alone through this hostile wilderness, starving, completely stripped of your rank, your army, and your pride.
It's just a total ontological shock.
It really is. And, we usually assume that recovering from that kind of trauma, rebuilding a shattered identity like that, it requires a lifetime of gradual processing. But today, we are looking at how a battle-hardened military commander went from a state of total devastation to unlocking the absolute secrets of the universe in a single night.
It's an incredible transformation.
Today, we are embarking on a journey to unpack a singular, incredibly rich excerpt from classical Chinese literature. Specifically, we're looking at Chapter 16 of the legendary text, Journey to the East, which is also known as Donghua.
Right.
We are dissecting this legendary, transformative encounter between a defeated military general and a mysterious old sage. And it basically serves as a masterclass for you on the mechanics of extreme psychological and spiritual transformation.
Yeah, and the gravity of this text, it really lies in its staggering density. Because on the surface, it just reads like a brief mythological encounter.
Like a fairy tale almost.
Exactly, like a simple fable. But beneath that narrative layer is a highly sophisticated blueprint. It maps the exact anatomy of an ego death and a spiritual rebirth.
Wow.
Yeah, the text forces us to look at this transition from violently ambitious terrestrial dominance to an absolute transcendent state of enlightenment. But to really fully grasp the magnitude of this shift, we first have to establish the absolute rock bottom of our protagonist's existence.
Right, we have to know where he's starting from.
Exactly. So we are introduced to Zhongli, and he's not merely referred to as a soldier, but he is specifically identified as the great Han general.
In the cultural and historical weight of that specific title, it really cannot be overstated. Because in the context of the Han Dynasty, military structure was just deeply, deeply intertwined with rigid Confucian ideals.
Oh, absolutely. It was the foundation.
Right. So a general's entire conceptual framework was built on duty, statecraft, the subjugation of chaos, and, imposing imperial order. You are a man whose brain has been wired over decades to perceive the world entirely through the lens of strategic advantage and social hierarchy.
You're a literal instrument of the state.
Yes. But the text immediately and violently subverts this paradigm, because we meet the great Han general in the immediate aftermath of a total collapse. He is described as fleeing alone on a single horse after his troops have been completely annihilated.
It's such a stark image.
It is. Yesterday he was surrounded by banners, deafening drums, the whole machinery of war, and today it is just him, the rhythmic, exhausted breathing of a terrified horse in utter isolation.
Just completely alone.
Yeah. He's desperately searching the landscape for an inn or a monastery, just any remnant of the human civilization he was sworn to protect. But he finds nothing but weeds and thorns.
And, the environmental storytelling in those lines is a brilliant reflection of his internal state.
How so?
Well, the weeds and thorns are not merely physical obstacles, right? They represent the complete dissolution of his meticulously ordered reality.
Oh, I see. Because he's used to manicured order.
Exactly. The world of military formations, strict laws, and imperial decrees has violently collapsed back into raw, untamed, hostile wilderness. The general is experiencing this fundamental realization that the universe does not actually adhere to his command.
You can't just order the weeds out of his way.
Right. He is entirely at the mercy of the elements. He's physically starving and psychologically shattered. And it is precisely in this state of absolute vulnerability that a strange monk suddenly appears and wordlessly guides him toward a hidden sanctuary.
Right, this secluded manor deep in the wilderness. And the arrival at the manor is incredibly cinematic. But the text deliberately delays the actual physical encounter to set up an ideological contrast.
It builds the tension, yeah.
The monk leads him there and then just vanishes. So Zhongli is left standing completely alone outside this mysterious sanctuary. And before he sees a single person, before a door even creaks open, The silence of the wilderness is broken by a voice chanting a poem from inside.
And the lyrics of this poem, I mean, they are essentially a targeted psychological strike against everything Zhongli represents.
It really feels personal, doesn't it?
It does. The unseen voice sings of enjoying the Tao, which is the fundamental, unnameable flow of the universe, enjoying it among misty vines and ancient caves. It speaks of a wild, expansive existence, serving only as a companion to the white clouds.
And that imagery of misty vines and ancient caves, it actively rejects the rigid geometry of the imperial court, right, and the battlefield.
Precisely. It paints a picture of total integration with nature, establishing an immediate philosophical opposition to the military general, because his very profession dictates the conquest and suppression of nature and men.
He's the ultimate agent of control, listening to a song about ultimate freedom.
Exactly. But the most devastating line in the chant is the assertion, there is a road, but it does not lead to the world.
Wow. Does not lead to the world.
Right. That single sentence articulates a philosophy of absolute deliberate detachment. The sage inside is declaring that he possesses a path, a discipline, but it's one that fundamentally bypasses the worldly dust, the political maneuvering, and the bloody ambition that have defined Zhongli's entire existence.
It's like he's saying, I have the answer, but it's not the answer you've been fighting for.
That's exactly it. And the poem concludes with the image of sitting alone under the full moonlight on a peaceful bed, possessing no mind for the world to grasp.
The juxtaposition there is almost physically jarring. Because outside the heavy wooden doors, you have a man covered in the literal and metaphorical dust of a lost war.
Starving, humiliated.
Yeah, his nervous system is just flooded with adrenaline and panic. He's entirely entangled in the thorns of terrestrial consequence.
Right.
And then inside the door, separated by mere inches of wood, is a Barry Killy bathed in moonlight, accompanied by white clouds, existing in a state of untouchable serenity. It visually and sonically frames the impending collision between the ultimate entangled ego and the ultimate liberated spirit.
It's brilliant framing.
But the preamble takes an even more fascinating turn immediately after the chanting ceases, because the voice inside casually mutters a complaint. He says, this green-eyed foreign monk is too talkative.
Yeah, that muttered complaint, it completely recontextualizes the dynamic of the encounter.
Why is that?
Well, it implies an astonishing level of awareness. I mean, the inhabitant of the manor is physically isolated, right? They've explicitly stated they have no road to the world.
Right, they're cut off.
Yet, they possess an almost omniscient understanding of the events unfolding outside their walls. They know exactly how the defeated general arrived.
Because they know the monk brought him.
Yes. And the characterization of the monk as too talkative or meddlesome suggests the sage inside operates on a plane where the frantic, violent affairs of collapsing empires and fleeing mortals are generally beneath his notice.
Like, oh, the monk brought a stray dog home.
Pretty much. The monk has essentially forced the sage's hand, dragging the noisy, chaotic baggage of the mortal world right to his doorstep.
It paints the sanctuary not as like a way station for weary travelers, but as an exclusive domain of higher consciousness. Zhongli has stumbled into a rarefied atmosphere, and he's tracking the mud of a fallen empire all over the floor.
That's a great way to put it, and the tension is palpable as the door finally swings open.
Right. Out steps an old man. And the text provides really highly specific details regarding his attire, doesn't it?
It does. Very specific. He is wearing a white fur robe and leaning heavily on a green quinoa staff.
So unpack that for us, because I know those aren't just random fashion choices.
Oh, definitely not. Those visual markers immediately signal to the reader and to Zhongli that this is an otherworldly figure, a highly realized Taoist sage.
Okay, how so?
Well, in classical Chinese elemental theory, or wuxing, white is associated with the West, with the metal element, and with purity and autumn. And autumn is a season of shedding what is unnecessary.
Letting things die off.
Exactly. And the fur signifies a feral detachment from the highly processed, brightly dyed silks of the imperial court.
So he's wild, untamed.
Right. And conversely, the green quinoa staff represents the east, the wood element, vitality, and uncarved natural simplicity. So the sage embodies a perfect living balance of natural forces.
Wow, so he's basically walking elemental harmony.
Exactly.
And this ethereal figure steps over the threshold, looks at this starving, filthy, defeated fugitive, and just bypasses any standard greeting. His very first words are, "Is the newcomer the great Han General Zhongli Quan?"
The psychological impact of that statement on Zhongli must have been paralyzing.
I can't even imagine. I mean, he hasn't uttered a syllable. He carries no banners. He's disguised by dirt and defeat.
Right, he's basically anonymous at this point.
Yeah. Yet the old man pierces straight through the physical degradation and specifically names the core of Zhongli's ego, the great Han general.
It is a profound demonstration of power, but more importantly, it is a surgical strike on Zhongli's identity. By stripping away the anonymity the general was desperately clinging to, the old man forces Zhongli to confront the massive chasm between his grand title and his current pathetic reality.
Like, look at the great general now.
Exactly. And the text notes that Zhongli is deeply shocked by this extraordinary insight. It shatters his worldly defenses instantly.
Because he realizes he's dealing with someone way above his pay grade.
Yes, recognizing he is in the presence of a being who operates far beyond the confines of ordinary human perception, Zhongli abandons all pretense. He bows deeply, confesses his disastrous military defeat, admits his starvation, and throws himself on the mercy of the sage.
And despite the sage's earlier grumbling about the meddlesome monk, his response to the broken general is one of profound, practical compassion. He invites Zhongli into the manor. But the hospitality provided is deeply layered with mystical significance, right? He doesn't just hand him a bowl of peasant stew.
No, not at all.
He serves him magu's wine and sesame rice. To anyone versed in Taoist lore, that menu is a massive neon sign indicating that this is no ordinary meal.
Right. So Magu is a legendary Taoist immortal. She's a symbolic figure intrinsically tied to the elixir of life, eternal youth, and the vast cyclical nature of cosmic time.
Wait, who is Magu exactly? Like, what's her story?
Well, in the mythology surrounding her, she claims to have seen the Eastern Sea turn into mulberry fields and back again 3 times.
Oh, wow. So, like, geological deep time.
Exactly. It's an immense scale of deep time that makes human empires look like brief flashes of lightning.
That puts things in perspective.
It really does.
Yeah.
So to drink Magu's wine is conceptually to ingest the essence of immortality, to begin calibrating one's internal clock to cosmic time rather than mortal time.
Okay, so what about the sesame rice?
The sesame rice, specifically huma, was a staple in Taoist bigu practices.
Bigu.
Yeah, bigu is the esoteric practice of abstaining from ordinary grains. The belief was that ordinary grains feed the 3 worms, or physical decays, within the human body.
So the meal is literally a physiological initiation.
Yes. He is literally feeding him spiritual provisions, purging the heavy terrestrial stagnation from Zhongli's body to prepare his mind for the philosophical surgery that is about to take place.
Because the moment the meal is finished, the old man drops the role of a gentle host and delivers a devastating, absolute critique of the foundational pillars of Zhongli's entire existence.
He doesn't hold back.
Not at all. He addresses the concepts of wealth and fame, and he dismisses them casually as mere floating clouds. And then he points to the martial prowess that defines Zhongli, referring to weapons of war as tools of ill omen.
And that phrasing, tools of ill omen, is a direct, deliberate echo of Chapter 31 of the Tao Te Ching. Yeah. The text explicitly states that weapons are instruments of fear and violence despised by the sage, and that a decent person only uses them when there is absolutely no other choice.
So by using that specific classical terminology, the old man strips every ounce of heroism, glory, and romance away from the military profession.
Exactly. He reframes the general's entire career not as a noble pursuit of order, but as a tragic, toxic disruption of the natural harmonic state of the world.
That must have been a tough pill to swallow for a guy whose whole life was war.
For sure. But then the old man expands the aperture of his critique, forcing Zhongli to look past his own immediate failure and gaze at the entirety of human history.
Right, he poses this brutal rhetorical question. He says, throughout the ages, have empires ever had a constant master? Has wealth ever had a fixed destiny?
He is forcing the general to confront the absolute absurdity of the human endeavor. Millions of men bleed into the mud to secure a border, and a century later, the empire fractures from within anyway.
Right. Vast fortunes are hoarded through ruthless political maneuvering, only to be squandered by the next generation.
Exactly. The old man is essentially asking, why sacrifice your finite peace and vitality for a construct that is fundamentally impermanent?
And to really drive this existential realization home, the old man employs one of the most famous metaphors in classical Chinese literature. He compares the sudden changing of shapes and fortunes in the mortal world to a golden millet dream.
Ah, yes, the golden millet dream.
Can you break that down for us?
Absolutely. So the golden millet dream is a profound narrative anchor originating from a Tang dynasty tale by Shen Jiji. In the original story, there's this poor, frustrated scholar named Lu Sheng,
All right.
and he falls asleep in a tavern while the innkeeper is cooking a pot of yellow millet on the stove.
Just a quick nap while lunch is cooking.
Right, but in his dream, Lu Sheng experiences an entire grueling lifetime of extreme ambition.
Like a whole lifetime.
A whole lifetime. He passes the grueling imperial examinations, he rises to the highest ranks of officialdom, accumulates immense wealth, beautiful wives.
The ultimate success story.
But he also suffers agonizing political betrayals. He's exiled to the brutal frontiers, manages to claw his way back to power, grows old, and finally dies a dramatic, exhausted death.
He lives an entire human saga of triumph and tragedy.
Exactly. And then he suddenly wakes up in the tavern, he looks over, and the pot of millet on the stove hasn't even finished cooking.
Oh, wow.
The entire lifetime of crushing defeat, soaring success, and exhausting political maneuvering was nothing more than a neurological illusion that occurred in the span of a few minutes.
That's wild.
So when the old man references this dream to Zhongli, it is an act of radical ontological deconstruction.
He is looking at a man who is actively traumatized by a lost war and basically telling him, your lost army, your disgraced title, your very real terror, right now it is all hallucination.
Right. It is just the frantic thrashing of your ego while the universe's millet is cooking. None of it possesses ultimate reality.
You know, hearing this, one might reasonably push back on the sage's philosophy. I mean, it is an argument you listening might be having in your own head right now.
Sure.
Because it's incredibly easy for an isolated ascetic, sitting comfortably in an ethereal manner drinking immortal wine, to dismiss wealth and duty as floating clouds or millet dreams. But the physical world requires management. Empires need borders. Society requires people willing to shoulder the messy, practical reality of governance and survival.
That's a very fair point.
Right. How does an old man simply instruct a high-ranking general to permanently deactivate a lifetime of rigorously trained ambition and civic duty?
The validity of that pushback is exactly why the timing of this encounter is the critical variable here. The text is not prescribing absolute asceticism as a universal mandate for every citizen of the empire.
It's not a blanket rule for everyone.
No. The teaching is highly specific to the recipient and the moment. Had the sage materialized in Zhongli's command tent 3 weeks prior, while the general was successfully expanding imperial borders.
You would have just ignored him or had him executed.
Exactly. The message would have been dismissed. The psychological armor of a successful ego is far too thick to be pierced by metaphors of impermanence.
Because he's winning.
Right. But Zhongli is sitting in that manner because the worldly paradigm he trusted has completely and violently failed him. The psychological cage of ambition and politics has collapsed inward, completely crushing him.
So he's finally ready to hear it.
Because he has been brought to the absolute limit of mortal endurance, the sheer weight of his disaster renders him uniquely receptive to this ego death. The soil of his mind has been brutally tilled by disaster.
The text actually provides a stunning visual metaphor for the internal shift that occurs within Zhongli in that exact moment. It states that his tiger and leopard ambition suddenly melts away, replaced instantly by a crane and phoenix mindset.
Yeah, and those are not merely poetic flourishes. They are deeply coded psychological statements.
Right, because tigers and leopards are terrestrial apex predators. Their existence relies on fierce territoriality, explosive aggression, and dominating the ground they walk on.
That was the great Han general.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the crane and the phoenix are creatures of the heavens. The crane represents longevity, elegance, and the ability to traverse vast distances effortlessly. And the mythological phoenix represents resurrection and the highest manifestation of spiritual refinement.
They do not fight for territory on the ground. They observe the entire landscape from an elevated, detached perspective.
So the sage's words did not merely offer temporary comfort to a defeated soldier. They acted as a catalyst that permanently reprogrammed Zhongli's fundamental operating system.
The identity of the general is dead. And in the void left by that shattered ego, the crane and phoenix perspective takes root. Zhongli recognizes that his previous mode of existence was not living. It was a slow, aggressive form of dying.
Wow. And recognizing his own profound emptiness, he begs the old man to teach him the secret of preserving life.
And this plea transitions us into the very heart of the text, the core doctrine that defines the path to transcendence.
Right. The old man imparts a teaching that initially sounds deceptively simple. He tells Zhongli that the ultimate secret to existence is to empty the heart, fill the belly.
In the original phrasing, that's 如亲信 shikifu.
which, sounds like a poetic way to say, stop worrying and eat a good meal.
Right, it really does.
But when Zhongli asks for an explanation, the old man delivers a staggering masterclass in ancient esoteric physiology and psychology. Let's dissect the mechanics of this doctrine, starting with the first command, empty the heart.
To comprehend this, we must understand the concept of the heart, or Shin, in classical Chinese medicine and Taoist philosophy.
Okay, what is Shin?
The Shin is not merely the biological muscle pumping blood. It is the sovereign of the body, the seat of consciousness, intellect, and emotional processing. It is the central command center of the human experience.
Okay, that makes sense.
The old man explains to Zhongli that in its pristine original state, this command center is inherently empty. It is devoid of things, functioning as a perfect, unclouded mirror that simply reflects reality without gripping onto it or distorting it with judgment.
But the human condition naturally inverts this ideal state. The old man observes that people become relentlessly burdened by material desires.
Yes, we do.
We take this beautifully vast, empty space, and we compulsively pack it with mental debris. We fill it with anxieties regarding future outcomes, bitter resentments about past betrayals, an insatiable lust for power, and the terrifying fear of losing our accumulated wealth and status.
We cram the mind so full of attachments that the spirit itself becomes suffocated and trapped beneath the weight of our own cognition.
It's exhausting just thinking about it.
It really is. The sage explains that to repair this disastrous inversion, one must engage in a radical rejection of desire. Taoist practices such as Zhuowang, or sitting in forgetfulness, are designed to systematically evict these anxieties from the mind.
Sitting in forgetfulness, I love that.
Yeah. When the heart is scrubbed clean and returned to its natural empty state, the spirit regains its buoyancy and can operate freely, existing, as the text states, beyond all things.
The relevance of this ancient concept to our modern daily lives is really profound. Think about your mind, your Shen, as the RAM or processor of a computer.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Right. When the hardware is brand new, the RAM is empty. It operates with lightning speed, effortlessly handling complex tasks because there is zero friction. But over the course of a day, we begin opening tabs.
Those are so many tabs.
We open a tab for financial stress. We open another tab for a conflict at work. We open a dozen tabs for social media, endlessly comparing our behind-the-scenes reality to the heavily curated highlights of others. We open tabs for geopolitical anxieties we cannot control. Soon, our mental processor has 100 complex applications running simultaneously.
And in terms of cognitive load theory, we are pushing our working memory far beyond its evolutionary capacity. The constant background processing of these abstract, ego-driven anxieties drains immense cognitive resources.
Exactly. The system begins to overheat. The cooling fans scream. Every simple, daily task becomes an agonizing struggle. We experience brain fog, burnout, and emotional volatility. And if one more unexpected stressor occurs, the entire operating system crashes.
We crash because we took a mechanism that required emptiness to function with agility, and we bloated it with the junk of the world.
Yes. The sage is giving Zhongli the ultimate directive for mental clarity. Close every single tab, clear the cache, wipe the RAM. Only in absolute emptiness can the processor function as it was divinely engineered to.
The tragedy of our conditioning is that we genuinely believe that by acquiring more knowledge, more worries, more status markers, more complex ambitions, we are enriching our internal landscape.
When really we're just lagging our system.
In reality, we are systematically destroying our own operating system. But empty the heart is only half of the sage's prescription. The necessary counterbalance to the empty mind is the second instruction. Fill the belly.
Right. And the belly here is not referring to the stomach or digestion. It points to the lower abdomen, known in Taoist anatomy as the lower dantian.
Yes.
This area is considered the physiological and energetic crucible of the human body. The old man describes it as the opening of vital essence. And the specific term used here is Jing.
Jing translates roughly to foundational life force or vital essence.
Okay, can you explain how Jing works?
Here. In traditional Chinese medicine, you are born with a finite reservoir of prenatal Jing, and you can cultivate a limited amount of postnatal Jing through breath and proper living. It is the dense foundational energy that drives physical growth, cellular repair, reproduction, and overall vitality.
So it's like your core energy reserves.
Exactly. The sage's ideal state is for this energetic reservoir in the belly to remain completely full, solid, and tightly sealed, possessing no leaks.
Yet, just as we aggressively pack junk into the mind that should be empty, We aggressively drain the energy from the belly that should be full.
It's the total inversion again.
Right. The old man warned Zhongli that people constantly lose their form to lust and desires.
Every instance of extreme emotional volatility, every pursuit of intense sensory overstimulation, every frantic exertion for worldly gain acts as a puncture in that energetic reservoir.
So we're just bleeding energy.
We literally bleed our life force out into the external world. We become chronically exhausted, our immune systems falter, and we age prematurely because we cannot stop hemorrhaging our foundational energy into attachments that do not matter.
So what's the fix?
The old man instructs Zhongli that to preserve life, he must strictly solidify this essence, block the avenues of lust and extreme desire, and keep his energy fiercely contained.
Returning to our technological analogy then,
Yeah.
if the heart is your device's RAM, the belly and your jing represent your battery life.
Yes.
We are all born with 100% charge. But instead of fiercely protecting that charge, we leave high-drain applications running invisibly in the background.
Oh, absolutely.
We push the screen brightness to maximum to ensure everyone notices us. We leave our Bluetooth constantly scanning for external connections, seeking validation from every passing signal. All of this unnecessary frantic output drains the battery at a terrifying rate.
And we spend our lives hovering at a frantic 5%, desperately searching for external chargers, caffeine, validation, momentary victories, while the battery degrades entirely.
And in the context of the human lifespan, hitting 0% is physical death.
The old man's doctrine is really a masterclass in thermodynamic efficiency applied to the human soul.
Wow.
We instinctively live our lives entirely upside down. We bloat the mind, which should be light and empty, and we hollow out the physical energy, which should be dense and full. By offering the instruction to empty the heart, fill the belly, the sage provides Zhongli with the exact energetic mechanics required to flip his existence right side up.
The mechanics are brilliant in their clarity, but the text elevates the stakes by detailing the spectacular consequences of mastering this balance. Because the promises the old man makes to Zhongli push the narrative far past a simple guide to stress management and deeply into the realm of ancient Taoist mysticism.
The rewards are immense.
He claims that if these principles are perfected, the results are nothing short of miraculous. The old can literally reverse their aging, becoming youthful, while the young can extend their lifespans indefinitely.
Immortality, basically.
Right. But the ultimate reward transcends physical longevity.